Hi everyone, it's Jess and welcome back to my channel. Apologies today if I can't talk properly. I have my new aligner in today. It's the first day wearing aligner number 5 and the first few days are always a little bit weird. So I might sound a little bit different, but we're just gonna ignore that. I am here to finally talk about my September wrap up. I have been putting off doing this video for a while and I really need to get it done. I decided that I'm just going to sit here in my blanket today because I am cold. I do have the heating on, but I'm very cold. I have a little bit of a headache, so I'm just going to get cozy and I'm just going to talk about the books that I read in September, and hopefully this video won't be too long. I actually didn't read that many books in September. It was an okay reading month. I don't know what the stats are. I haven't looked. But yeah, I'm just gonna get into it. So I am gonna start with a DNF, and this is a book that I really don't want to talk about. So I was debating whether I wanted to talk about it or not, but this one here, Bodies, a romantic bloodbath. So I think I mentioned in my August TBR video that I was planning to read it in August. Well, that didn't happen, but I decided to pick it up in September. And this was a very risky read because I had seen some of the reviews of it and they weren't great. And yeah. I do not recommend this book. I read the first part, which was, I don't know how many pages it was, because I read the ARC copy on my Kindle, but I think I got like 20% of the way through, just under 20%, and I just knew that I didn't want to continue with it because it is very rapey. It has an interesting concept and it's all to do with clones. And it started off kind of interesting about the Queen of England being killed by her clones. And I don't know how that panned out because obviously I didn't get to the end. And then there is this high school guy who is doing these experiments, and the girl that he likes rejects him, and then he decides he's going to make a clone of her, and you can kind of guess the rest. But this is not a romantic book in any way, and it was just very misogynistic. I just got the impression that the writer hates women. Maybe he doesn't, but that's just the assumption that I got. There was just no justification in this book to do with the character's actions and his thoughts, and I just really didn't like him. And I love reading books about fucked up characters and fucked up scenarios, I don't shy away from that kind of thing, but this one was just very... it was just a big no-no, and I don't recommend this to anyone, and I just don't understand why the writer felt that it was necessary to include the sexual violence that he did, other than just for it to be a shock factor kind of thing. And I don't agree with that. So I just couldn't finish this book, and I would just advise that you steer clear of it. I mean, if you want to read it, you can. I'm not one of those people to tell people not to read something. If people want to read something, they can. It's their choice. But just know that when you go into it, that this is not a very female-friendly book. Alright, so now that one's out of the way, I'm going to talk about a book that I didn't give a rating to, but it was a non-fiction book, and that is the great adaptation, Climate, Capitalism and Catastrophe. I'm so proud that I remembered that. This is a book about climate change and capitalism, and to be honest, it was quite boring, but I got through it. I actually got through it pretty quickly because I didn't really have anything else to read at the time, but it was one of those books that was just very monotonous and just very it didn't have any voice or any character to the writing, which, you know, I know it's non-fiction and it's not always there to entertain, it is there to inform. But, you know, I like to be entertained when I read non-fiction as well, and the writing in this wasn't what I personally like. Having said that, I did learn some things from it, and this book is about mainly how capitalism relies on climate change in order to, you know, gain income, and there are certain businesses, you know, that invest in climate change or in the things that climate change causes, or the things that cause climate change, because, you know, they provide the most income and things like that. And it also talks about how climate change relies on capitalism to help stop the effects of climate change, and how certain companies have enough money to, you know, help pay for things that will prevent the effects of climate change, but those companies don't want to because they benefit from the effects of climate change, if that makes any sense. So it was kind of interesting, and I did learn some things from it, but it wasn't the most informative book, in my opinion. It doesn't really tell you about how you can make changes in your life and things like that to help with the effects of climate change on the planet and things like that. It's more just about, you know, capitalism and things like that. But it was interesting, and I did learn some things. So I still recommend it. I got it from Verso Books, their subscription that I get every month, and I get access to a lot of their ebooks. So I recommend that as well. This is not a sponsor. But yeah. Now we're going to talk about all the books that I did give ratings to, and we're going to start with my 3-star reads. So I'm going to start with Survive the Night by Riley Sager. So I did do a vlog on this. You can go and view it up there if you want to. I had a lot of fun filming that vlog. I initially didn't give this one a rating because I didn't really know what to rate it, because it wasn't the best book by Riley Sager that I've read, and it wasn't the best thriller that I have read. But I ended up giving it 3 stars in the end. A lot of people have been quite harsh with this book, I think. I've seen a lot of 2-star reviews. I've seen a few 1-star reviews of it, and I don't think it is that bad. It was okay, you know, and this one is about this girl who is heading home from university. Her friend has been murdered and she can't deal with that, so she's going home to take some time to get herself in a good place, and she gets a lift from this guy who has like advertised himself on this like ride advert thing at the university, and so she gets in this car with him, and then it turns out that he might not be all that he seems. And it is basically what it says on the cover, you know, she's got to survive the night. And the concept is really cool, and it reminds me of a few films that I've seen that I have really enjoyed. And I was expecting it to be very intense, you know, because of the confined setting of being in a car and being trapped with someone who you don't know, who might be a serial killer or whatever. The claustrophobic vibes, and I expected a lot of tension. And to start with, you do kind of get that, but it kind of like drops as the book progresses, which was really, it was a real shame. But there was some twists in this that I weren't expecting, and there were some twists that were very far-fetched and ridiculous. But if you have read the book and you have got to the end of it, you will know that the way the book ends makes those twists make sense. And it wasn't an ending that I saw coming, but I felt like I should have seen it. But the ending did feel like a bit of a cop-out. So, yeah. I mean, I did enjoy it. As I said in my vlog, you know, I did have a good time reading it. And, you know, I get that it's not for everyone, but, you know, it was all right for what it was. So I think 3 stars is generous, but I do totally get where people are coming from when they say they're like disappointed and things like that, because the previous 2 Riley Sager books that I have read have both been 4 and 5 stars respectively. And I do also understand why people have an issue with the way he writes female characters. I never really noticed it before, and it never really bothered me, but in this one it did, because our main character Charlie was very stupid. Not that, you know, females can't be stupid. We're human beings, you know, any human being can be stupid, and we do make stupid decisions, but she continuously made them. So I don't know. It is what it is, but go and read it if you want. It's still kind of fun. So the next 3-star book that we have is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. So Gillian Flynn is the author who wrote Gone Girl, one of my favourite all-time thrillers. I love that book. I was very disappointed by Sharp Objects when I read that back in July. So I wasn't really expecting a lot from this one, but it was an improvement, and it was more my thing. This is about a woman called Libby whose brother, Ben, is in prison for the murder of Libby's mother and sisters when they were younger. And then she gets contacted by these people who are interested in crimes, you know, in murders and criminals. And they want her to come and do a talk to them about her experience, and they will pay her. And she's like, you know what, I need the money. It, let's do it. So she goes, and then it turns out that there are people who believe that Ben is innocent, and so she gets swept up in trying to find out what actually happened. And you're kind of seeing the events play out in 2 different timelines. So you've got present day, where Libby is trying to find out what actually happened herself, and then you've got the timeline in the past, which is kind of taking you through the events of the day that led up to the murders. And yeah, it was really interesting. I did really enjoy it. I loved the brooding and dark atmosphere within the book. I loved the kind setting as well. This farmyard setting of where Libby and her siblings lived when they were younger. It was very typically southern rural America, you know, and I loved that. It was all right. It wasn't the best, and at times I was a little bit bored, and I did think, you know, is this really necessary to the story? But it did play out okay in the end. I kind of guessed how it was going to go. But you know, again, it was a definite improvement on Sharp Objects. So I really recommend this one if you want to read a Gillian Flynn book that's not Gone Girl, because I know loads of people don't like Gone Girl. But yeah, I liked it. Next we have The Lady of the Rivers by Philippa Gregory. So it is the first book in the Cousins War series, but this was actually, I think this was like the last book that was written in the series. But this is a prequel to this book here, The White Queen. And this is about Elizabeth Woodville's mother, Jacquetta. So Jacquetta was French, and she married into an English wealthy family, and she became the Duchess of Bedford. When her husband, the Duke of Bedford, died, she married his squire Richard Woodville, and they became the parents to Elizabeth Woodville, who became Queen of England. It is very complicated. This is set during the end of the 100 Years' War between France and England, and it's also set during the start of the Wars of the Roses, which happened in like the 1500s, something like that. Well, this book starts in 1430, so quite a while ago. But this is a period of history that has really interested me for some time. And I've been wanting to read this book for ages. And it didn't disappoint. I really enjoyed it. I just felt that it went on a bit longer than it needed to. And I wasn't really interested that much in Jacquetta. I was more interested in her daughter Elizabeth, which then leads me on to the next book. So this was 3 stars. It was okay. But then for 4 stars, my only 4-star book, and the last book I'm going to talk about, is The White Queen by Philippa Gregory. So this is the second book in the Cousins War series. And I have read this book before. I read it quite a few years ago when I was a teenager, and I really enjoyed it. And this is the one that I was interested in the most. I mean, look at this book, right? It's falling apart. All the pages are coming out. I did get it secondhand. These came out completely. But that's just because I was devouring this book. I was reading it so quickly. But yes, this is about Jacquetta's daughter, Elizabeth Woodville, who marries King Edward IV. So King Edward IV overthrew King Henry in this book, and became the York King, and there is a lot of plotting and murder and magic and revenge and everything. This period of history is the inspiration for Game of Thrones, so you know what I'm on about. And yeah, I really enjoyed this because it just features all of my favourite historical figures, and Richard III. I love Richard III so much. He's just such an interesting figure to read about and learn about. And yes, it is kind of mixed in with some fictitious elements, which Philippa Gregory does talk about at the end of the book. But overall, you know, this was great. It was just really well written, and the battle scenes in this book were so good. They were so intense, and I could just picture them so vividly. Yeah. So I really recommend this one if you want to read some historical fiction that's really gritty, that feels like a medieval fantasy. And also if you are interested in the Wars of the Roses and Richard III, I really recommend this one. I still need to read The Red Queen, which is the 3rd book in this series. I'll probably get to that in November, but yeah, really enjoyed both of those. Alright, and that's it for my September wrap up. I don't know what else to say, so I'm gonna leave it here, but let me know in the comments if you've read any of the books that I have talked about in this video and what you thought of them, whether you agree with me or not. As always, I love to hear what you guys have to say. If you like this video, then feel free to give it a cheeky thumbs up. I always appreciate it. Subscribe to my channel so you can see more videos from me in the future, and hit the bell button so you don't miss any of them. And with that, I will see you all in my next video very soon. Bye guys.